All right, welcome back everyone. We are in our third and final presentations of learning session for today. Thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you to the allies for sharing your journeys with us. And so with that, we will get started with our next person. So Annabelle Arbogast is with Green Umbrella. Please correct me if I said your last name wrong, Annabelle. I just noticed like I never say y'all last name, so I'm always like, is that how we pronounce it? So with that, go for it, Annabelle.
Thank you. Just a quick note before I get started. I've been experiencing some technical difficulties, so if I get cut off in the middle, I have another laptop that I'm borrowing from Green Umbrella. It doesn't have a webcam, but I can dial into the audio and just reconnect as quickly as possible. Hopefully that won't be necessary. So with that, I'll start my very creatively titled presentation. You can, I think, tell that I'm a recovering academic because it's not a long, tedious title with a colon in the middle, which is actually a nice purpose to what I'm talking about. So to give an overview of my service, in addition to the Friday trainings and the other service opportunities that we had, I was placed at Green Umbrella for my 10-month apprenticeship as a farm to school fellow with the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council. And some of my service objectives were developing farm to school action plans in coordination with farm to school planning teams at 4 local school districts, soliciting input from local educators on farm to school implementation, as well as barriers and needs through focus groups that I ended up facilitating remotely due to COVID, creating a database of farm to school resources and partners in the region. So not just looking at regional barriers and needs, but also thinking about that public allies focus on assets and looking at the assets that are available in the region and how and creating resources to help educators better leverage those. Reporting on some barriers and facilitators for local food procurement in K through 12 schools, which is a major part of farm to school, along with food and agriculture education and community engagement. Those are the 3 C's of farm to school: cafeteria, community, and classroom. And then creating draft community engagement plans for the school districts that will be implemented in during the 2020-2021 school year. As we discussed in the previous session, I was part of the Yellow Team, and our team service project was in partnership with the Greater Cincinnati Homeless Coalition. We were initially doing a community organizing project around the closing of Finley Park and shifted into doing tenant organizing work during COVID. And then my perspectives of the day was around the topic of power and privilege age. So I was happy to be able to apply some gerontological knowledge there, but also learn from the personal and professional experience of my team members. When I initially applied to become an ally, I had a couple of goals in mind. I wanted to become a better scholar and researcher by gaining insight into barriers to and strategies for implementing novel solutions and creating systems change. So I hope that this experience would inform everything from what kinds of research questions I asked to how to think about presenting the implications of my research findings. And then to a lesser extent, acquiring skills and experience. I felt like I was missing to inform participatory action research, which was something that I was always interested in, but a little intimidated by. And then to become a better educator through participating in PA trainings and learning from not only the content that was presented, but also from the facilitators' teaching styles and techniques. And by becoming better equipped and empowered through the leadership development opportunities, and also through being part of this immersive program with my ally peers to be a mentor and advocate for students and more actively engaged in the life of the campus beyond the classroom. So for me, although this is a bit of a departure from a more conventional academic career path, it wasn't by any means a gap year. It was a learning opportunity that was only accessible through a program like Public Allies and not necessarily through a university. So this is an image. This is not me. This is a public ally on the pamper pole from our first retreat. So we had an opportunity to those who chose to climb to the top of a 20-foot pole and jump off. And we were given a prompt, including those of us who didn't choose to climb the pole, what was something heading into public allies that we were leaping away from. And I remember saying that I was hoping to leap away from sort of prescribed trajectories or pathways. And I thought that I was doing that to a certain extent because, again, public allies was a bit of a departure from a traditional academic career path. But then during my first IDP meeting with my program manager, Amaya, I came prepared with my completed education pathways worksheet, and she very kindly asked me to redo it and pointed out in what was a helpful and well-timed nudge that what I had sort of mapped out for myself was basically already mapped out for me in advance based on the requirements of my program and the requirements of life in academia. And so that was a helpful opportunity to step back and reflect on why I was on the trajectory that I was on and why I wasn't on another one or hadn't considered others, and whether those reasons were good enough. So there were a couple of components of my time in public allies that helped me feel more empowered to consider other career options beyond academia that could still incorporate research and teaching. And one of those was learning to recognize and start to articulate some of the transferable skills that I have. And my supervisor, Michaela, had a big hand in helping me to recognize what some of those were. As someone who has a JD and a PhD and will probably go on to collect more degrees before she's finished, she helped me to identify some of the skills that I was carrying over from academia into my service at Green Umbrella, which has, as I said, helped me consider what a different career path might look like. Some examples of those skills are research methods. So I conducted interviews with farm to school partners throughout the region and teacher focus groups. I also developed a survey as part of our TSP work and a couple of evaluation surveys for my placement at Green Umbrella, and then conducted data analysis to synthesize the findings of those and reflect on how those might impact a regional action plan. Also was able to transfer some writing skills through my placement and TSP and some activism work that I've been doing. In an academic context, I came from women's gender and sexuality studies. I got a bachelor's and master's degree in one interdisciplinary field and then shifted to another interdisciplinary field of gerontology. And so I've had plenty of opportunities to think about and have conversations about interdisciplinarity, but it turns out that that was really good preparation for trying to have conversations across different groups of stakeholders in the nonprofit sector, from people working in different departments and school districts to people doing classroom education and farm-based education and local food procurement. I was able to practice facilitation skills as well as curriculum development through the perspectives of the day, and then project management largely through being one of a few people leading the implementation of the USDA Farm to School planning grant that Green Umbrella was awarded. And then another major component of my service in public allies that helped me to achieve the goals I set out with, and also think about reimagining what my goals might be going forward, was the continuous learning, including having an opportunity to observe a diverse range of leadership styles outside of the classroom. I think those of us who started in September had a unique opportunity to see a transfer in leadership within public allies and to see how people with different leadership styles could be really effective in the same position and have a positive collegial relationship. To see different approaches to facilitation and also learn about that through the training that Nicole offered. And I was lucky to be placed at Green Umbrella for this as well, where this was often a subject of discussion, and I had the opportunity to see many approaches to facilitation in practice. Another aspect of continuous learning that I really valued was learning more about inclusive pedagogy. It had been quite some time since I taken any introduction to gender studies classes or intro to sociology classes. And when I took those classes, the people in the classroom were a lot wider and more fluent on average than Public Allies cohorts tend to be. So I was able to see how the facilitators approached that, and the techniques that they used and the vocabulary that they used to implement a more inclusive approach to training. I had some experience with team-based research prior to Public Allies, but every experience with team-based research, I think, is a learning opportunity depending on the specific team and the specific research project. Collaboration and collective impact. I tended to prefer, before Public Allies, to work mostly independently, but my experience with the team service project and through working at an organization that operates according to a collective impact model helped me to really appreciate the value of collaboration for affecting systems change, as opposed to just sort of putting a Band-Aid on problems. And then I was also fortunate in being finding myself in a placement where I had an opportunity to learn a lot more about food systems, which is relevant to the research that I'm doing for my dissertation. And although doing work around farm to school isn't necessarily immediately tied to my population of interest, which is older adults, I did have the opportunity to sit in on and participate in some meetings that the Food Policy Council was doing around for a project around healthy eating and healthcare. And then sort of tying together a lot of the trainings, as well as my experience with TSP and at my placement, learned how to better understand the ways that multiple forms of injustice are connected in specific local contexts in a more immediate way than, say, reading a case study authored by someone writing about a very different location than Cincinnati. And this includes understanding how, for example, housing justice and environmental justice and racial justice and economic justice are interwoven, which is something that I've been able to apply and hope to continue to apply in work activism that I've started to do around housing justice in Cincinnati. So one way that I've applied some of the understanding of and recognition of transferable skills, as well as the continuous learning in Public Allies, is through taking on a leadership role in a couple of organizations that are doing work around housing justice in Cincinnati. My TSP with the Greater Cincinnati Homeless Coalition served as kind of a launching point for this. Previously, I hadn't seen myself as having a lot of leadership potential outside of the classroom, partly because I hadn't seen a variety of leadership styles in action outside of the classroom. But through TSP, I was able to get connected with and join the committee for Cincinnati Action for Housing Now, which is the campaign to create a sustainable funding stream for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. They're attempting to, or I guess I should say we are attempting to get a charter amendment on the ballot in May 2021 to create that funding stream. And then the Democratic Socialists of Metro Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, I was involved in the creation of a housing justice priority campaign within that organization, and I'm now working to help establish a coalition with Socialist Alternative that hopefully will expand beyond those two organizations in the future to do work around housing justice. So some of the experience that I gained through TSP, working in Over the Rhine, doing community engagement with people in Over the Rhine, and starting to do some work around tenant organizing, is really informing this, along with the power and privilege trainings that we did, the walking tour and training that we did with the Homeless Coalition back in September. And then some of the examples that I've seen of collaboration and practice and coalition building and practice have been valuable. And I'm also hoping to continue learning through this experience. I've joined the field implementation team for Cincinnati Action for Housing Now, which will expand my political education. And then I'm hoping to gain more experience with community engagement through my involvement with DSA's Housing Justice campaign, which is something that I tended to shy away from at first with our TSP, and then got more actively engaged in when we shifted over into tenant organizing. But none of this would have been possible without having strong mentorship from Amaya, my program manager, and Michaela, my supervisor at Green Umbrella. And thank you for joining the call. Amaya, thanks for that initial nudge to step back and reflect on the trajectory that I was on and start asking those difficult questions, and for the support and guidance you've provided throughout the term, and especially during the difficulties around COVID and that transition. You really demonstrated that you value our allies cohort and our mental health and our, as well as the service that we're doing. So thank you for that. And then Michaela, thank you for always checking in on mental health and self-care, and making sure that to demonstrate that those were values for you also, as well as giving some advice around potential alternatives to conventional academic career, conversations about being a recovering academic. Also for encouraging me to participate in coalitions like All In Cincinnati and the Northern Kentucky Safety Net Alliance. I learned a lot through that, and inviting me to take part in some of the meetings around healthy eating and healthcare, that work, and just making space for conversations about food systems and housing justice and racial justice and neoliberalism. And I've heard you make self-deprecating comments about yourself as a supervisor a number of times, but I've also commented to multiple people on different occasions that I feel incredibly grateful to have been placed at Green Umbrella, largely because of your mentorship. So I can only hope that if I complete the second term, I will be as fortunate again, and hope to take use the mentorship model that both of you have provided to mentor some of the allies that are coming in September. So this is roughly what my pathway looks like going forward. I'm hoping to complete my dissertation and my PhD, hopefully while completing a second term of service in public allies, and then moving in what should probably be more of a tangle or a scribble rather than a straight line toward some career path that is actually less defined, but for good reasons. So, thank you.
Thanks, Annabelle. Comments, questions? Michaela, with you being on, I would love to just hear some words of wisdom for you for Annabelle. I know I'm putting you on the spot. I know.
I mean, she already talked about, I think, the best words of wisdom that I've tried to give her, which is, sort of, and what you started with the nudge with, of that academia really tries to shoehorn you into this very, very narrow conception of yourself and what your value is in the world. And she's clearly given a huge amount of thought to how that is a narrow, restrictive path. And it's, yeah, and that she has so many transferable skills, and it sounds like has really developed a lot more and a lot more perspectives from this experience. So I don't have any major words of wisdom to give her, but I will say, Stella put in a comment in the chat box that says, she may be quiet, but you're really funny and opinionated and intelligent, and it's extremely obvious. And that's been one of the reasons we've loved having her in the office is, I mean, the sort of wit and one-liners and zingers that she throws off when we're having conversations have always really been lovely. So.
Thank you. And thanks, Stella and everyone, for your comments.
Great. Thank you, Annabelle. So up next, we will transition to Brennan Ball, who served at St. Vincent de Paul. Brennan, do you have your presentation queued up? Are you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. Feel free to share your screen whenever you're ready.
Well, welcome to my Public Allies presentation of learning, growing in group dynamics, year 2020. Introduction, who I am and how'd I get here. My name is Brennan Ball. I'm a 33-year-old graduate of the University of Cincinnati from the College of Allied Health Sciences. My undergrad is a Bachelor's of Science in Social Work, and I began my PA journey in July 2019 at the Cintas Center Job Fair through Cincinnati Works. Through a rigorous interview selection process, I was accepted into the program and matched with St. Vincent de Paul as a social services advocate. I had been searching for a job with sustenance ever since my recent return from overseas. And I guess I should say that I actually heard about Public Allies like my sophomore or junior year of college. I had a couple friends that had told me about the program, and I remember the symbol, the hand, more than anything, than actually, what the program was about. And then as I talked with Amaya at the Cintas Center Fair, everything started to come back to me about how we work with nonprofits, and we try to uplift and uphold leadership skills and different aspects like that. My placement was at St. Vincent de Paul. This is our logo. They are going 150 years strong, and it's a national organization. But here in Cincinnati and the Dayton area, the focus is on the social services department and shelters, men's shelters in Dayton, which is pretty awesome. The mission is a network of neighbors inspired by gospel values, growing in holiness, and build a more just world through personal relationships with and service to people in need. Some of the St. Vincent de Paul core values are holiness of life, service of the poor, I should say service to the poor, humility, simplicity, community of faith, and charity. So at my placement, some of my successes were I worked with neighbors. We call them neighbors. They're also in other social services fields are known as clients, on achieving life goals, helping out with Christmas programming, helped to train volunteers on computer systems and social services, and assist in the pantry during COVID-19. Some of the difficulties, adapting to office environment, getting enough sleep, meeting commitments on time, whether that be ally commitments or personal commitments, understanding my implicit biases, and understanding my leadership style. And so I guess the most profound thing that I think back about these 10 months is how much implicit bias I even had as an African American male, working in a low income community. I just assumed the worst before I got there. I think I had several conversations with my mom about, just traveling through the West End and, safety concerns and stuff like that. But that was just something that I had to throw out the window after about week 2. It's just a regular neighborhood, needs a bit of a sprucing up. But, I'm just glad that, I was able to overcome that, because I saw that as a really big hurdle at first. So my core value reflection, during my time in the Public Allies program, I have come to understand collaboration to mean an inclusive space where all team members are welcome to input their ideas. Like I said at the beginning slide, I was growing in group dynamics here because I have actually never worked so closely with a close-knit group of people for so long, and it was interesting. During my time in the Public Allies program, I've come to understand diversity and inclusion to mean leadership and skill should be represented by every person, no matter their socioeconomic demographic or racial makeup, which is an awesome component of PA. How I feel about working in groups. I have a quick video.
Is group work a thorn in your side? This video will equip you with the strategies you'll need to help your group be successful, leaving you anxiety-free about your next project. But why have strangers collaborated on projects? Research shows that we actually learn better and retain more information when we work with diverse perspectives. No matter what career you choose, some form of group work will be necessary, so starting now is great practice. So why are group projects sometimes a major headache? Even though it has led to great things, like Destiny's Child and the Rolling Stones. Yet still, most students don't do group work, but instead stitch the work of 4 to 5 different individuals together like it's Frankenstein's monster. The true purpose of group work is to use a range of perspectives to develop one polished and refined product. Now, let's focus on the early stages of group work. One of the biggest struggles students have with group work is managing the logistics of the project. Who's taking notes during the meeting? Who organized the meeting? Who will check in to see if tasks are completed? Before delving into the answers, have everyone share some bad habits that they want to improve on. For example, a tendency to be late or dominate a conversation. Basing these responsibilities on your answers will save you a lot of frustration down the road. We divided these responsibilities into roles like a note taker and a mediator. You can learn more by clicking the link in the description. Decide what works best for you and your group, and allow room for flexibility in your roles. Up next is project planning. Before you end, make sure your group is on the same page when it comes to your purpose, goals, and approach for the project. Be specific with your tasks. Instead of shoot a video, break down the process into each of its steps. This will prevent potential conflicts, and the group can always refer back to this page if you hit a roadblock.
So, as you can see, the video really just reinforces what we had already been learning through our Friday training with Vic, just about having these preconceived notions about group work can often be the reason why group work doesn't go so well. But overall, I consider Public Allies like group work, and I had like a wonderful time. Like the sun like really shined on this program, and I just got to really like show character, and I really appreciated my placement and Mary for choosing me. Every day I was thankful that I was there, and in the midst of COVID-19, I know a lot, most of the allies, except for like Stella and myself, had to, and Adam had to go home. And I was just lucky enough that, I was placed in the pantry where I was still, like able to give that type of service. TSP though, we had 2 TSPs, tenant housing organizing, and then our friends of Finley Park, the Finley Park organizing. I guess I got Eeyore up here because I felt really down about TSP because I was worried about the impact of the Finley Park, which was our the latter of the 2 TSPs, and I kind of felt like I felt like we abandoned the Finley Park and we didn't have as big as an impact with the tenant housing or organizing, and I had to really figure out how I was going to shift from one project that I became passionate about to a project that I wasn't so passionate about, and that even in the midst of doing the tenant housing organizing, I found that, you know, like I could have very easily been, you know, one of the tenants because I had no access to like a laptop for, you know, a greater majority of the year and things like that. So Eeyore is my theme. I needed a learning curve, I think, about working in groups. When I was in college, I just remember facilitating groups was always a struggle for me because I often thought that, you know, like individual work was better because, you know, like that's how I learned. It was doing individual work. But I beg to differ now. Growth, where do I see myself next year? I see myself in this order. This is my pick, Amaya Frida. A fellowship year would be awesome. If that is not possible, then I will be using my education award to go to graduate school to get a master's of social work, probably in reentry. So I'm looking to go out west if possible, as long as, you know, COVID doesn't strike again. And last would be like to enter the job field directly from public allies. And key lessons that I learned is that leadership has to be earned. You know, like it's not just given to you. And leadership is tough and rigorous, especially as a course. And I believe that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
I think Brennan and a couple of you others just gave me a gentle nudge with this fellowship here, huh? That's all right, I can take it.
Hey, Amaya, I'm
yes,
on the phone.
Mary.
This is Mary. I just wanted to thank Brennan for his service this year. He did a great job with us. He did really just, I'm looking at his leadership stuff and seeing how he has grown over there. He always, and his group project work, hearing his thoughts on that, because he always kicked in with the group on a work team. So he might not like groups for some other reason, but when he's at work, he was able to participate as a team member. And we really appreciated the service that he jumped in and did in the pantry and in our social services team. So we do hope that he will be able to come back as a fellow next year. Hint, hint. But I just wanted to be here and say thank you to him for that. So
thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Any other, we can do one more comment and or question for Brennan. I'm getting all the gentle nudges. I will tell you all tomorrow, okay? Fair enough?
Fair enough.
It's fair.
All right. Okay, so with that, we will go on to our next person, Sharice Hambrick, who was serving at Cradle Cincinnati and the Queens Village. Sharice, are you on? I think I see you.
Yes.
You made it. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Are you able to share your screen?
Yes, but I don't have a present. I don't have a. I have.
Okay. Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'm a little nervous too, so we're gonna go
We're amongst friends and family.
Okay.
All right, you got it.
Okay. So I'll go over my core values first. During the 10-month program, I have been working with Cradle Cincinnati, a nonprofit organization that focuses on the infant mortality rate. My time with Cradle has been astonishing. More than 1,500 children a year in Hamilton County are born preterm, meaning that every day, at least 4 babies are born before they are ready. Cradle Cincinnati's mission is to reduce the infant mortality rate. The majority of my impact was due to Queens Village, where I did most of my service. This is how I developed networking skills, basic community building, and leadership skills. Through these actions, I have learned to interact and gain relationships inside and outside of my placement. I participated in a lot of community-based activities, helped create and set up events for Black moms. My time during the Public Allies program, I've come to understand diversity and inclusion, collaboration, integrity, and continuous learning. Each of these PA core values holds a different kind of lesson in my life. Those values either show up in the process of me serving at my placement and also at any of my trainings. Diversity and inclusion began to show up way before I started my placement. Starting off, I was someone who lacked knowledge of how to interact with people that were different from me. I grew up being around a certain set of people for so long due to my environment. I knew I had no understanding of, or no, I knew I had not understood or valued diversity and inclusion. I was aware and I would feel uncomfortable. When I was in need of better learning and higher learning, I was enrolled into a private charter school. I noticed I struggled to do well my freshman year because it was definitely a culture shock for me. I noticed I experienced anxiety and what I discovered to be called microaggression. It was hard for me to be myself there. Most times I either was pressured to talk or pressured not to talk. Though these are the moments that I endured, I still believe that if I had been taught about diversity and inclusion, I would have taken that into consideration. I know I now have a better lens to see through when it comes to being around different people and cultures. Collaboration is a huge core value that I participated, or no, that I practiced heavily at my placement. An example of how this showed up both personally and professionally would be Cradle Cincinnati. I began to notice that a lot of work happens hands-on in the community and with other organizations that help participate in the impact for our mission. It took time for me to finally get comfortable and speak, but I did that with the help of one of my coworkers, Miss Crystal. Miss Crystal is a community health worker and also an event planner who works exceptionally hard to serve Queens Village mission. She has been someone I would call my friend, but also my mentor. Crystal, who I spent half of my time learning and observing with, gave me insight to what comes with working for a nonprofit and many hardships of what it's like to put an event together. Okay. I believe me and her collaborations were one of my top ones because not only was she there for me work related, but also personally, and I am forever grateful. Collaboration has stood out to me when we were invited to an event called All Children Thrive Collaboration. It was an event to get all community health workers or any forum in that matter to be acknowledged and heard from all over the city, working to see the future of the youth. I learned about equity and inclusion and how even though we are working on different projects, our unity is what makes the impact greater. Integrity is another core value that I believe was strengthened during the during the program. A few examples how integrity has shown up and still shows up a lot of times during working with my placement and my TSP group. I never really had problems in the teamwork setting because my thoughts on teamwork was everyone gets their side done and then we all come together. I would say my whole view on teamwork has changed because not only were there times I couldn't get to my task, but there was times I needed to follow through with someone else's task. My integrity played along in my team settings because I got to appreciate the team's drive to get our project where it needed to be. We had to depend on each other for personal and public trust. There came times when I had to set up and take step up and take initiative when our agendas couldn't be completed. Times in the office when my supervisor needed something finished, and time that became my duty to not disappoint my team or my supervisor. So that that became my duty to not disappoint my team supervisor, and that showed up as integrity for me. And here's my freedom of speech. Okay. So once I began my 10-month program through Public Allies, I must admit, I really didn't know what to expect. I used to think my future was going to have an outcome of me being a failure. As a result of me failing my first year of college, things seemed like they were not getting better, and I felt stuck in a sense. I didn't know what next goal would be to accomplish. I began to get in my head and made myself feel bad, and on top of that, missing friends. I noticed my mom seemingly being concerned about my mental state and the next steps so that I can be better prepared for my future. My mom acted in such assurance for my future when I didn't have any for myself. So I put in an application for the PA term of 2019 and 2020, not knowing what to expect again, but this amazing program had so many learning opportunities and was great for the resume. I began my term working with Cradle Cincinnati, and a nonprofit organization who focuses on the infant mortality rate in Hamilton County. And my position entailed a lot of community building and social networking. I began going to our events and was the one in charge of starting the sign-in sheets and keeping track of the colorful ladies who walked in. I got to experience being around these powerful women and their babies. I began to notice more and more that my placement practiced a lot of public speaking, and that made me scared. I was already known to be a soft-spoken person, and I knew that this was a challenge I needed to take in order to complete my program. I have suffered from social anxiety since the age of 15. I never wanted to be in a large crowd, and whenever I was, it was an unsettling feeling. Queens Village really played a big impact on my personal life when it came to hearing and listening to Black women's stories and giving Black women a space of their own. QV meetings gave women opportunities to speak freely on the things that brought them stress. I started to take pride in what I was a part of after participating in our Queens Village meetings. We had discussions about the mental health of our Black women and the common stresses that Black women have to battle every day because of economic oppression. This is where I mostly did my self-evaluation during our QV meetings. Something about being in a room full of Black women felt appalling and beyond words can express. They made me feel powerful too. Being a witness to these women's stories gave me motivation to walk in my journey with confidence.
Go ahead, Sharice.
My social anxiety was never something I included when introducing myself because I used to believe that made me somehow different from others. I do believe that I did put more pressure on myself when I didn't inform others of my anxiety. Still, I continued to be muted when it came to even trying to speak publicly, but I was surely getting there, and I started to see myself grow more and more every day. My first mini PLL was also a challenge that occurred when it came to my public speaking. I remember being very anxious and antsy to get my presentation over with. I know that it wasn't my best, but I know that it wasn't my best effort. I know that it wasn't my best, but my effort gave me some great feedback from my PA family. Once they gave me feedback that was given to me, I took that and applied it. I began to notice something about myself that I couldn't figure out. I was lacking, and it was my confidence. I began to question myself in ways in ways I could become a better me. This was a difficult journey for me, but somehow I still managed to make it through. And our PA retreats was very much needed. As much as I wanted to be away from home, or as much as I didn't want to be away from home on a Friday and at Camp Joy, it was actually something that I needed in the long run. I learned more about myself every retreat we had. I remember having a conversation about my dad and needed advice about a friend, things that I wouldn't most open up about. But along the way, my PA family made it safe for me to have a conversation about. I will always be eternally grateful for the people who have given me advice and showed love during the time here, because I know it is going to pay off in my future. Freedom of speech became my theme because I thought of myself as someone who wasn't putting their voice to use, even being part of an org that has such a big impact. During the pandemic, I felt myself falling back into my shell, very offstandish and feeling like the hard work I did wasn't paying off. In that time, I discovered more about who I didn't want to become, like not being reliable or not following through. I had to come out of what it felt like depressing moment in my life. But right after that, I saw the killing of George Floyd. At that moment, I felt a shift of rage and sadness in my heart. I didn't know how to react or where to start or what words to say. And it felt like an anxiety attack all over again. In the process of what was going on during that time, I have found an urge to use my voice at all times. I refused to be the girl who was afraid to speak because of what others thought or portrayed me as, because now I know today that doesn't matter. People are either going to love it or hate it, but it's up to you to be that change that people hope for. I used to hope for change, but I will be the change. Public Allies has given me the tools to not only become that change, but also to use my tools and skills to teach and facilitate that. Okay. I'm done.
You're going to have us all crying. We've been crying all day, Cherise.
All right.
I want you to see all of these, support, all these people that are behind you, that are your family. I know Meredith and Lucia and Jocelyn and a few others are here. I would just welcome y'all to, affirm Cherise and just share a little bit of how it's been working with her, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, I'll say through the tears. I am so proud of you. And when you came on, you said very clearly, like, wait a minute, you want me to do what? You want me to get in front of people? You want me to talk? Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate the vulnerability that you had. But more importantly, you never said no, and you did it every single time, and you improved every single time. And I appreciate the vulnerability with your story and sharing why you took that break from school and that you used that time to really improve yourself. And so on your way back to school, I know that you will walk in power and will take all that you learned in the community of people who are standing behind you and under you to lift you into the spaces that you are going. I believe wholly in who you are and how you perform in the world. And I am truly looking forward to how you will make change. And if you need anything, the Queens Village team is all about supporting you. We love you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. I love you guys.
And we love you too. And, you were the one that started that this is a family. So keep that. And just because this chapter is closing, I just echo what Meredith is saying. Like, you will always have PA. You'll always have Queens Village. So, feel free to lean on your family and never let your age dictate what you can and cannot do. You're in a program with people who are almost twice your age, and you're still putting forth that work. So don't forget that. Never count yourself out. Okay? All right. Let's keep the good vibes and the happy tears going, shall we? So up next, we have Dewana Jones doing their mini POL, and they were placed at the City of Cincinnati Office of Environment and Sustainability, as well as the City Manager's Office. Dewana, are you on? Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dewana, as you know. And I'm going to focus on mostly what I learned and my experiences at my placement and at Public Allies. I first wanted to start off with, while working with Public Allies, I've really been inspired to invest more time into social justices. Before, I always told myself I wasn't going to be too political. I'm not on either side. I'm not going to be involved because it doesn't involve me. But being in this program, I'm more exposed to social injustices that I didn't even think about, that I didn't even realize I was a part of as well. And having that thrown in my face, it really just like gave me a reality check. And before the program, I wouldn't have ever attended a protest, rally, none of that. I don't do anything out of my comfort zone. And knowing that some of my cohorts were going to be there and the other allies went, even though I didn't see them at the same protest that I went to, knowing that my community was going to be there and if I needed support, I would have it, was all I needed. And it was so life-changing to experience going to a protest and seeing it's not what the media is portraying it to be. It is not this scary thing that everybody's making it seem to be. It's just the community gathering to support the cause. And it was really beautiful. While being in my placement, I did witness a few inequalities, such as since I am placed in the city manager's office, I was allowed to get a badge, and the badge I used to get in and get out of the building, while some of the other cohorts or allies, they worked at City Hall, but they worked at a different department. So they had to sign in and out they have to sign in the back door in order to get into their placement. So I thought that was pretty funky. Another inequality was when I was completing a community challenge grant through AARP, I was reaching out to some organizations on advice on a mural project, a street mural. And one company I reached out to, I had first reached out to everyone via Gmail because I was doing it on my phone and it just immediately did it via Gmail. And so I scheduled a meeting with someone, and then he didn't answer the phone call and he didn't call me back, which is fine. But when I followed up, because I had followed up with all of the organizations with my work email the following week, the organization was blowing me up. They wanted to get a meeting, and I just decided not to work with them because I just felt that was a little funky. One of my hardest challenges, the hardest challenge that I faced is my being flexible with Public Allies in school and my placement. It's really hard for me because I am a full-time student, and I've always worked full-time, but I've never had to put in as much effort and attention into my work. I typically just go to work and everything happens just subconsciously. I can just do whatever. So in the beginning, things were really shaky because at first I was working on the census, then things changed. My job description changed. And then after that, COVID hit. So I had to do my school from home and my work from home for the first time ever in my life. And so I really struggled with that because I couldn't focus. I had a really hard time focusing and staying motivated. But I just had to remind myself of the privilege that I have to even be in school and to even have a job. Like, I just had to every day remind myself that I am so lucky to be where I am. And I reminded myself every day of the grant money or the education reward that we receive at the end if we graduate, and the network opportunities that I get working at the city manager's office, because there's always meetings and there's always something going on. So I was always able to slide in and take notes or schedule a meeting with anyone because of the job that I have, which was really nice for me. And having this mindset that, I'm waiting on this grant money, getting these network opportunities, I've been able to stay more motivated to complete my assignments, which has been really good. It's been really, really important for me it's been really, really important for me to accept that everybody is only human and they're doing their best. I'm used to very strict schedules because I've been in school since very strict schedules and deadlines. So when COVID hit and things just started sliding, it was so hard for me to not get frustrated with everyone and just accept that everybody's doing what they can. And it's just been really humbling for me because I put a lot of stress on myself to be perfect and to get everything done in this certain amount of time. I have to have it done, but I'm only human. So some things that I worked on at my placement. One of the things that I developed was an Excel worksheet with senior organizations, long-term care facilities, senior centers, and retirement communities. And I used it for a contact list for a Cincinnati age-friendly livable community service. It's a program the Office of Aging and Accessibility is collabing with CABA and Council on Aging with. And I made this sheet so that I would have a contact list, but this could also be used as a resource once I'm gone. If anyone, wants to know what the retirement communities are in the city or wants to know what organizations are helping seniors, they can be guided to this list. And lastly, I wanted to say, before I was in Public Allies, I did not show myself as much grace as I do today. I managed my time really poorly, which resulted in me having half-done cram assignments and high anxiety. I was also really private emotionally. I was always afraid to speak about how I really feel and how things make me uncomfortable. But, going to our trainings and being around everyone and hearing everyone else's stories and everyone being so willing to open up about their experiences really made me feel comfortable and like safe or whatever. And another thing is a part of self-care that I learned in the program is acknowledging your uneasy emotions and living through them and understanding that you're going to have these feelings and it's okay. The program truly has shown me the importance of true self-care and taking time for your mind, your body, and your soul, and giving yourself that time to relax and not just trying to go hard all the time. So with that, I've made it a priority every week to set goals that I accomplish. And I keep track of those accomplishments in a little, this little blue notebook that I have. And I just go back through them. I've only done it for 2 weeks, but when I go back through them, it makes me feel good to just see the little things that I've done, even if they aren't what I was expecting. And lastly, the program has helped me decide what job I do not want to have. Questions? Sorry if I went too fast. I get really excited and talk too fast.
No, it was good. Questions, comments. Let's see, we have a lot of them in the chat. Yeah, I immediately thought of Annabelle when you were saying working on our senior citizens. Because I know she does some of that work. Very insightful. I do appreciate the candidness because you were one of the last allies to join us for this year, and you took to it, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna do school in this, but we could try it. So yes, definitely always remember that like your feelings are valid and perfection should never be the goal, right? I always like to think of it like, okay, well, how can I evolve to become better? Not necessarily perfect, but better, right? And I think that allows you some grace as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Chandra.
Chandra.
I just wanted to reiterate what Duana had said about when they came to the city and the original work that Duana was going to be working on changed. Like we had been doing training and we were building a schedule and we were doing wonderful like planning around that. And then it just got like halted immediately and then moved to another regimen that we weren't really like built to sort of hand over to Duana. And so we were pretty much putting the wheels on the car as we were driving it. And then COVID hit. And then, even our entire department just got blown up, and all of our priorities and everything we were doing were changing, and staff was pulled in a lot of different directions. And I know that Dewana struggled to keep on task and do all those things, but I will say that in the moment when it was all happening, it was like water off a duck's back. Like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this today, and then Dewana would just adjust and go with it. And I just, like, this experience would not have worked with anybody else. Dewana's ability to just adapt in the moment, because literally their job changed 3 or 4 times, I think, in the 5 months. Like, it's only been 5 months. So it's just, Dewana's just been like, their attitude around all the craziness has been great. And I think that having been very much like Dewana about everything's got to be perfect in my past, and what I've learned is everything's got to be perfect, and people aren't fitting into the way I like to do things. Like, I've had to overcome that in my own profession and in my own personal work. And I think, like, a little bit of chaos really forces you out of that comfort zone and makes you really sort of understand things. And even working from home was literally one day, Dewana was just sent home. So mid and end year career professionals are not good at working at home and being self-disciplined. And again, it was a struggle, but you really rose to the challenge. And I thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Chandra.
You.
I'm gonna miss you too.
You'll be in the same building.
Yeah,
but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Dewana's job is changing one more time.
Hopefully only one more time.
Hopefully. Yes. Thank you so much for being with us. All right. So let's transition one more time to our last, but certainly not least, presentation of learning. So Naomi Dumas, who is placed with Public Allies Cincinnati. Are you ready?
I think so. Sorry.
You say I'm ready, not think you know.
Well, I don't love presentations, but I'm going to get this done because that's one of the things I've been working on.
Yeah. Okay. Are you sharing your screen?
Yes, I'm going to try to do this thing. I had to watch a YouTube video on how to share, so give me like 30 seconds. I'm going to try to manipulate this here.
As always, if you need to send it to me, you could do that too.
No, don't do that. What's that?
Once you have it pulled up, you should be able to see the green share button and select that document.
Yep.
Everybody
see. Okay.
It's blank. Oh, it's loading right now. There you go.
All right, so last but definitely not least, my name is Naomi Dumas. I'm doing my presentation of learning on facilitation and the Public Allies Network, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. What I will be covering in my presentation today is why I joined Public Allies, going over a little bit of my placement and experience, my favorite Friday training in TSP, and some of my biggest takeaways from my PA experience. So PA kind of found me. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I was actually working at a call center, and I was good at my job. I just didn't like it. There was no room for growth, so I was kind of just biding my time, trying to figure out what would be next. And I was actually introduced to Public Allies through an old alum by the name of Milan White. Her father was actually my old basketball coach, so I already had a relationship there. He tried to get me to do firefighting, and I'm like, a little bit of a crybaby. Don't know how well that's going to work out. And she was like, well, I did this thing. It was PA. It was awesome. She told me some of the information about it. And then coincidentally, somebody at my workplace at Macy's had tried to go through the program and was telling me about it. She's like, it's the thing to do. I couldn't finish, but like, I absolutely love my journey. I would go back if I could. And then I started seeing like Facebook ads for Public Allies. So it was weird. Like, people you may know. And then just with some of the things I heard about it was the personal professional development, and then the opportunity for the education award. If I didn't do anything else, I figured I would go back to school and get a degree and go from there. So I was initially placed at Elements as a social media manager. Got my hands wet as far as the social media thing, learning how to post, when to post, using the different platforms and how to connect them and manipulate them. I did a lot of creating flyers and posters for events and promotion, helping organizing and plan for the different concerts and performances. And one of the projects that I completed that made me pretty proud as far as my work that I could show was an interview that I put together, actually using the PA network. We did go to WCPO down on, is it Elsinore Drive, right at the bottom of Walnut Hills, and met some people through there. One of the contacts, Mike Cannon, got me in touch with one of the, not hosts on the news, but Kristen Hartman. And I talked to her about trying to get this story done for Elements. So this is a video highlighting the work that I did. I can, nope. Give me 2 seconds. I apologize. I was having a few technical difficulties. I'm trying to play a video and it is not allowing me to do so. But I will continue going. I really wanted to show the video. It was actually an interview that I put together.
Naomi, you're breaking up a bit.
With WCPO highlighting the work that I was doing at Elements, trying to expand on their Element Center. There was a girl power interview trying to tailor more towards the girls in their program.
Hey, Naomi, I think we lost you.
I'm sorry, I literally.
Your screen froze a bit, and then I don't hear you at all if you're speaking.
Well, what in the absolute?
Are you able to go back to your PowerPoint?
She said she can't hear.
I'm sorry, what?
She said she can't speak or hear.
I don't. Let me see. Naomi, send me your PowerPoint, and at least I could share it on my screen. That might help with you being able to at least speak on your end.
She said that she sent it to Frida.
Oh, okay. Frida, can you pull it up?
Sorry, my chat was frozen, but I can pull it up right now.
Okay. I will stop. All right, let's see.
I love Zoom.
Zoom is amazing.
Oh, it says that Naomi has to stop sharing screen in order for me to share.
Let me see. I can usually do it on my end. Hold on.
Oh, wait, okay, I got it.
You got it? All right. There's a bit of static. Naomi.
It's me.
It's me. It's me. It's me.
I am trying to exit off of the Zoom on my computer.
It almost sounded
Okay,
like a bad techno mix.
Oh my God, did that work?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And Frida has
Jeebus.
your PowerPoint pulled up. I was like, this was
Okay.
like a bad techno mix, but we're back. Go
Techno
for it.
sounds nothing like that. Do not diss techno. Anyway.
Okay. Is it actually possible to play my video while I get my mind back together to finish?
Where's the video?
Okay, it should be in the speaker notes.
Let me stop sharing.
I think it just wouldn't be like COVID if we didn't have technology issues.
Right.
All right.
So there's an ad, but this is an interview that I put together for Elements to help their capacity building, get more girls involved in the after school program. Most of them were wanting to do dance. So we kind of tried to tailor a girl power hour, and the dance program will be included.
Can you all hear that?
Tweets Positively Cincinnati is about girl power and over the rhyme. 1 8 count at a time. Chanel Jones and Anaya McNair are working to warm the face of hip hop in the heart of OTR. Years ago, when they started dancing at Elements, there weren't many women to talk to. As anybody else ever paid attention to hip hop, is very male dominated. Even when it's meant for everyone, created to serve a neighborhood's young people. Through music production, the visual arts, spoken word, and dance, Elements actually trended a lot more boy than girl. But that didn't stop these two, and they reaped the benefits. Anaya talked about one of her Elements teachers. He helped me develop as a person. Now she and Chanel are doing the same with a goal. Why is it so important to you that young ladies represent themselves in equal numbers here at Elements? Well, I believe it's important because, they're human as well. We're trying to just empower young ladies and let them know that anything they want to do, they can do. They say becoming instructors themselves. Nice to meet you, Jada. Miss Chanel. And these are the other lady dancers here taking the class with you. Has helped grow the girl ranks. Now that I'm one of the instructors here and I'm someone of that higher level that people can come to and look to as support or as help, it kind of makes me happy because now I have girls talking to me about school, talking to me about life. Ready? Come on, get in. Here's a full class from one evening last week. Jump up, jump back. 6th grader Ramaya Taylor loves the dancing. Boom, 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 boom. And the fact they're proving hip hop is more than a guy thing. I can't put my foot down. We focus on women being strong and powerful, not just sexy. We can be just as strong as men when we hit moves, and it's great to build each other up and empower one another with those movements. It all caught Samira Mann's attention as she walked by the Race Street studio. There was a lot of dancers. I feel like I should just come in here. She's on the outside looking in no longer. 5, 6, 7, 8. Do your own little rock on your balance, okay? And that's mission accomplished for the women, making a place for the girls. Nice. Good job, lady. Elements serves a couple hundred kids a year. Most are boys, but the girl ranks, as we said, are growing. Chanel says the organization now has a woman instructor in the DJ program too. With dance, there's even a team they call CA Squared that stands for Confidently Creating Active Achievers, and it just happens to be all girls. Hey, it's me, your skin.
All right, and thank you for the assist with the video, Frida. Once you're ready, can finish. So as a lot of you know that my placement with Elements ended when the COVID hit, basically because of their programming and how they were set up, everything being inside the Element Center and all of their funding being based on future projects. They literally had to cancel everything for the summer and upcoming year, which left me, unfortunately, without a placement until I was accepted as a Public Allies went to say my role is a ally recruitment consultant and ally leader.
Yep.
Helping Bryce. So I also want to give a big shout out to the ally staff, Amaya, Frida, and Bryce, for making space for me so that I could finish my hours to graduate. So in this role, I did some help with Bryce with creating meaningful content and engaging content to help boost the ally program, help with the recruiting season, and just going over some holidays. Like I know Juneteenth is a big thing for the African American community. It's a little known holiday. It should be way more widely celebrated. So I did make a post for that. If we could go to the next slide, I can show you some of my work that I completed, including a social media calendar. So these are two of the flyers that I created. On the left is the Juneteenth flyer. It has a little bit of history of what Juneteenth is and why and how we celebrate. And the flyer on the right was one of my first flyers that I created for the PA experience. That picture is going to be a little bit familiar from a previous presentation, but it was for recruitment, and I felt like it was really powerful because it's such an interesting viewpoint, especially once you understand the story behind it as well. Can you go to the next one? Thank you. And then as far as trainings and TSP, I really appreciate all of the Friday trainings. They were all very, very important and invaluable in the lessons that they provided. But like so many others, the Power and Privilege series really hit home in a different kind of way. Learning to recognize the privilege that I have on a regular basis and educating others on their privilege and bias on a regular basis, and having those conversations because they are meaningful. I really enjoyed the classism activity where Bryce was the mean mayor. And it was a very fun activity, but it was also really insightful, like, especially in recent times, especially after watching the city council meeting and understanding the connection between the classism activity and the real steps that are necessary to make change in your own city. I really enjoyed the Weaver Cup, Team Baby Yoda, because we bosses. So to all the other teams that didn't win, sorry. And then within my TSP, I felt like I learned a lot. Was also a person that didn't love group projects because I always felt like there was more weight on other members, took on more weight than some. And that's life. You also, so one of the lessons that I learned in TSP was when to step up and when to step back. Recognizing that some people are natural leaders, just because they're natural leaders doesn't mean they want to lead all the time. So learning when to step up, but also learning and recognizing my weaknesses and when I may need to step back and let somebody else lead, or just lead the charge. But conflict resolution and their success and failures, I will never forget that, because not every time you think that you fail is it really a failure. There are always lessons learned and things to take away from all experiences. Go to the next one, please. So my core values that I feel I try to embody, one at the top would be continuous learning. I was always a person that enjoyed knowledge for the sake of knowledge, to know something because I felt like it was important to know, but also just the fact that you have to learn things. When you get new information, you have to take out what you thought you knew, reevaluate it, put the real pieces together, and continue to go forth. So I really enjoyed just the different educational pieces of the program and what I learned. innovation. I feel like PA definitely helped me highlight what I needed to do with my life as far as my calling in the future. Innovation is recognizing where there's a need and fulfilling it. And I feel like I will be able to do that again more later. And then integrity, being honest, being accountable, showing up. And that was never more important than in TSP and as a professional trying to grow in this program. Some of the things that I took away within the last year, I learned that my voice is powerful. When I do choose to speak, others listen. I did learn, Amaya actually pointed it out, that I am great at giving directions, which I didn't take as, it's like such a, I don't know, it almost seemed like a boring kind of thing, but it's like when you can get to people and understand them and communicate effectively, that's really powerful. I am a continuous learner. I am an agent of change. Have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, having difficult conversations, and not just be present, but actually be a part of the conversation. And learning to take care of myself, take time for myself, because you can't do your best work if you're not, you can't pour from an empty cup. I'll say that and leave that alone. And also to speak up for what you believe in and be loud about it. And then my last slide, as far as what's next for me, I'm taking the career pathway. As I mentioned before, I was going to provide some more information. I've actually began the process of becoming a birth doula in February. I've completed my coursework and working towards completing my certification. I have 3 pregnant clients that I am working with for the experience to complete my certification. I've created a business page and a Facebook page, and actually did the website by myself. And as far as being a birth worker, I want to help close the gap and highlight the discrepancies in the healthcare field for pregnant African-American moms, mothers, and their families of color, and really just be a voice for others that don't have it. And this was all highlighted between starting PA, the loss of my father, and the journey of being an aunt. So I actually did share my business page. But yeah, I feel like this has been a wonderful, wonderful journey. Definitely would not take it back, but if I had figured out what I wanted to do earlier, I feel like I would have traded my placement to benefit me in my career choice a little bit more. But outside of that, I'm going to continue to grow and take the lessons that I learned with me in PA through my future. So thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you, Naomi. Comments, questions?
I want to comment and just say, Naomi, it's been an honor to work with you. I guess these past few weeks, months, Elements really, I'm sorry they got to miss out on your brilliance, but I'm so happy Public Allies got to benefit from that. You were so engaging when it came to alumni spaces. You were so engaging when it came to social media. And you know, everybody wants to think they're young and hip for forever, but you feel so old. I was seeing some of your posters and I'm like, wow, that's such a bright color. I don't know if my eyes can see that. It's just because like I'm turning to dust. And you really are like this rising star. So thank you for giving me 100% when it came to doing work as an ally leader. You were fantastic. You were fantastic the whole time. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bryce.
Anyone else? Let's see what we got in the chat. Tatiana has been crying thug tears the whole time. Miss Betty. Love the loud about it part, being proud with a purpose, on purpose. Sarah shared your website. Yeah, good job, everybody. Let me stop the recording.